Alright, today we're going to talk about propeller noise. And where you might think you have $40 or $50 worth of noisy motors, you might just have $3 worth of noisy props that you can replace. Okay, so I'm not an expert in propeller resonance frequency, but I did search around a little bit, looked for some information, and found an old video, research video, where it talks about two modes of propeller resonance frequency. Basically, mode one is there's just one single point where the propeller tip is flexing, and mode two, there's actually 2 points. There's a point near the shaft and a point near the very end of the tip. So let's check this out here. So in this experiment, you can see they're vibrating the propeller, and then it gets to a spot where the tip starts to meet its resonance frequency, and then vibrates widely. And I'll show a little better example of that in a second. In this sample, what they're doing is they must be vibrating the shank up and down to do this, because they're spreading sawdust then on the propeller itself to see where that point of bending is occurring. And you can see right where that line is, it's kind of diagonal across the prop. And the point they're trying to make here is if there's a nick in the leading edge of the prop up here, that's where the propeller will separate, if that nick happens to be where that nodal point is. And really this comes down to propeller safety and inspections. That's what this video is about. But the same would apply to us, I would imagine, right? If you have a nick from a tree branch or whatever, and your propeller has broken, that could be why. So mode two, let's skip forward a little bit. In mode two, the propeller is shaking at two different spots. One, you can see there's a nodal point right here where the very end of the tip is, and then there's another nodal spot back near the shank. This is very interesting to me going forward a little bit. They used a strobe light here, and you can really see the amount of deflection on the prop. So really that's what we're talking about here. What's going in. Obviously the wind passing by the propeller as it's spinning at 30,000 RPMs is causing it to hit a resonance frequency, and then you're getting that vibration of the tip at the very end. If your props are really bad, you can physically see it by just hovering at line of sight. Be careful, obviously you have to be a halfway decent pilot, right? Put in an angle mode or whatever, and have a plain backdrop behind it, the quad, like a house or something of that nature, and you should be able to look across the blades and see if they're vibrating up and down if you're not really into black box. And I know on the props that I'm going to talk about here, the worst ones, the King Kong 51s, I could physically see it. So that was mode one, and now they're going into mode two. Now mode two is more discreet. It's just the very tip of the prop is flexing in mode two, and then you can see the whole prop is kind of wiggling in this mode two example. So and that one would be harder to detect by just visually looking at line of sight across your props. Mode one should be pretty easy. There's probably other modes and everything. This is just something quick I found to try to illustrate, hey, how are these props actually creating the noise? It's really just the tip flexing up and down. And then at the very end here, they're illustrating that there was a nick in this prop at the nodal point, and that's what caused the propeller to separate. So if you've had a prop explode, that could have been why. Okay, so we're going to get into 3 sets of data. 2 other gentlemen sent some information to me as well to pull this collaboration together. And my data is going to be going from cheap budget props to quality props and what the difference is there. So let's talk about that. Testing King Kong 5045 props from Banggood, and then 5051 props from Banggood as well. Great price, $6 for 10 sets. Can't beat the price, but as you'll see here in a second, they suck. And you can see here, this is a raw trace. I'm using plasmatree and some logs. And this is a full flight, and you can clearly see the motor band here, which honestly the dynamic notch does a great job to kill this out, but better than filtering it is just to not have the noise to begin with. Recently got the 5051s to test them out, and they are horrible. You can literally have it hover in front of you, and I'll link those down below and flash a picture up here on the screen of each of those. and you can literally see them vibrate if you hover it kind of at eye line, just like in the video shown, and see the tips vibrating up and down, and that's where all that noise is coming from. So they're just horrible, bad. Here's the PID settings and the filter settings that I used in that test. So here's the 50, 51 props, and you can see the amplitude. This is the debug trace. So this is that, when you're looking at this waterfall graph of the noise here, that's what this is really measuring. This is the frequency, is how far these vibrations are apart, which goes up this way, and then the amplitude, the higher the amplitude, the more yellow it is. So you can see the roll axis is the worst up here, and yeah, so that's the vibrations there. You can see the motor traces down here. Now, the dynamic notch does do a hell of a job at killing out high amplitude noise, so the motor traces get fairly well cleaned up. You can see through here we still have some noise. So let's see that. So these were the worst. Let's do the 50-45s, and you can see that motor trace ultimately is cleaned up a lot. These the raw vibrations are more succinct. Essentially, they're in a tighter band, so the dynamic notch is more effective there, and that leads to cleaner motor traces. But let's look at the raw noise of the 50-45s versus the best contenders I've saw, and you'll see it in data here about to come, the T-Motor 50-43s, which had the best performance from all the tests I've seen so far. Look at the raw debug for roll, and roll here as well. Now, in this test I had a different debug mode, so I only captured the roll, but the same vibrations you see on the roll, the magnitude differential, you'd see it. You also see in the pitch and yaw. And just look at the level of raw noise coming in. It's dropped dramatically. So again, this is the King Kong 50-45s. And then look at the difference on the T-Motor 50-43s. Okay, another set of data is from Mark Bismarck, and he, I would say, is the expert in props that I've talked to, at least to this level. I'm sure there's a lot of experts in props, but he's really a connoisseur of props and has tested a wide variety of them, and he was kind enough to send me all his data to kind of pull this together as well. And so thank you very much, Mark. I bow to your experience with this stuff, because I have not done nearly as much prop testing as you have. So if you see Mark out there, give him a big thanks, and yeah, hit him up with questions. I'm sure he'd love to answer. All right, there's his settings for PIDs and filter settings. And he just went through, and this is all raw data. This is all with the same PIDs and filter settings. So you can see, they're pretty good, but some are better than others. So I'm just going to go through here a winning list. So to me, out of these props, now obviously there's a differential between the Avant R 5140 and 5150, just in grip and feel and all that kind of stuff. And yes, that's another component. So if you like how these feel and grip better than the 5040s, obviously, or the Avant Rs, well then maybe noise isn't your only factor. We're just going to look at noise. So out of the three comparing here, this is the noise winner. Same across the DAL 5040s, 5046, so on and so forth. Got some bi-blades here, so let's pick the winner here. It looked to me like the winner here was the 5040. Gem fan, 5149, so on and so forth, you can see, and then the T-Motor. Look at that T-Motor performance. Man, that is really just low amount of noise. So we're going to say that T-Motor is the winner there. The King Kong 5040s weren't that horrible, right? So they weren't that bad. Now, compared to, you can't compare these versus my graphs. Different quad, different frame, different PIDs, different filters. You can only compare Mark's data versus Mark's, or Bismarck's data versus Bismarck's data, and my data, which is, my name's also Mark, UAV text data versus UAV text data. So it's isolated within those buckets. Here's the HQ series, and look at how well the 5050 performed here. So to me, if you're going back, if you like the 5143, if you like the 43 pitch, T-Motor looks like a great choice. If you like a higher pitch, HQ 5050s look like a great choice. So we're going to pick that as a winner. So here are the best out of his results. The DAL 5040s, the Van R, the T-Motor 5043, and the HQ 5050. So that gives you a spread. This is a 40 pitch. I'm not really sure what the Van R is. I'd have to look at that. Ask Mark about Bismarck. He knows. And the 5043s. Honestly, the T-Motor 5143s, compared to the King Kong, the budget 5045s, I can't really tell the difference in grip and all that kind of stuff. I just noticed that there's a heck of a lot less noise, so I can raise my filters up or lower the amount of software filtering I'm doing. The worst out of Mark Bismarck's data: the Azure 5150, DAL 5050, King Kong again, and the HQ 5051. So you can see that, like, if you're going to go the HQ 5050 or the HQ 5051, my advice, go to 5050. I mean, that differential noise can get you. The key here is that you have lower noise coming in, so you can have less software filtering, which gives you less phase delay on your gyro signal, which is, to me, it's everything for prop wash and handling. Mark Bismarck also did tests on the 51, the HQ 51 series. So let's take a look at that. Here's his settings there. They're slightly different. Same quad, but slightly different settings here. And what I wanted to do is show that even though the settings were slightly different, he did a 50-50 and a 50-50 on each. This is the old flash data we saw, and this is the new flash. So you can kind of see, yeah, the PIDs and the settings are different, but it's obviously a different day. It's kind of the same result. So I think you can kind of draw comparisons between the first set of data and the second set of data. Not exact, but pretty close. So you can see again the 5151 here, also not a great performer versus the 5050. The GemFan 5049, and then just going through these again. The T-Motor 5143 didn't perform as well, but it's still, really holding its own. So those T-Motors to me are really a great prop. And they're very lightweight at the tip, which I think helps, which I know helps with prop wash a lot. Okay, so we also have data from Dom Lee, and Dom is over in France, I believe, and he has a great channel. I will link that down below, so if you're French speaking, go check that out. And he has noticed that there's even a differential in color. So what's the best color props? So out of the very popular HQ 5043s, you can see the best color, if you're agnostic to that, is clear or green. Of course, my luck is red is kind of my color, so obviously red is the worst in his test data, so that kind of sucks, but yeah, well. So clear or green is what he had as the best performance. And then if you look at the T-Motors, and I had grabbed red T-Motors, but if you really wanted to get the best T-Motors of the 5143s, it looks like clear is the best choice. So the common result here is that the clear props seem to perform better than any of the colored props out there. Okay, we have GemFans 5042s, clear blue. To me, kind of the same. 5046s. Looks like in that case, green versus black. Black's a better choice. So if you're agnostic to whatever color, just go with black if you want to have the DAL 5046. Here's some more of his test data. It's kind of the same. It is the same data, just shown in spectrographs, and you can see the T-Motor here. If you're trying to look at the amount of noise level across the board here, the T-Motor is still the winner, the clear. And then if we're looking at this also, we can see the clear or green from the HQ 5043 versus the red or black. Definitely have the least amount of noise. So the obvious next question is, does this all really matter? Does it really make a fundamental difference? And Dom Lee did some tests where he had the old HQ 5048 tri-blades, old batch. They were purple. They were brand new props. And you can see in the video down here, it's pretty smooth. You might be able to pull out imperfections, but we're comparing this against something here in a second. and you can see the smoothness of that, and not so bad. Now he had some new 5048 tri-blades, new props, new batch, and they were light red, translucent color. And look at the vibrations in the feed and the traces there as well. I mean, you can really see the jello and the throttle oscillation there. So yes, it makes a difference. That's what kind of spurred his evaluation of the data itself. You can check out this video. I will link it down below. Give him a like and a watch on that video. I'm sure he would appreciate it. So now he's looking at some old 5043 tri-blades, old batch, light green. You can check out the video here. Keep an eye on that. You can see the traces as well. Did a great job. I mean, the overlay and with the HD there as well, and the overlay of black box. What a thorough analysis of this. And now he's looking at the new batch, light red 5043s. And look at the shaking there. I mean, you just passed that. You need to back up a little bit. Look at the jello that he's getting off of that. And this is the kind of stuff that I love to see. You know, we're doing these videos comparing different firmwares and filters and all that jazz. It's like, this is how you do it. I mean, look at that. With the traces and the level of detail. And, you know, if you would contact him and say, hey, can I get those logs? I'd love to look at it myself. He's more, you know, I have them here. They're going to be linked down below. But so when you're seeing other video productions and stuff, and you don't have the availability to grab the logs and just the transparency of the data, really should be commended here, and I'd love everybody to be doing that. Okay, that is it. I hope you found that interesting with a little bit on how the tips of the props vibrate. You know, that was a full-scale prop, but the same thing happens for our quads and these little props. And also just some pointers on, you know, what are the best props out there. I'm going to drop a bunch of links below where you can download this data yourself to take a look at it. Black box logs, it's a lot of data. It's going to be probably 50, 80, 100 mega data. But you can peel back the onion on it as much as you want. Also, Mark Bismar has a great sheet where he talks about the other features of it, you know, what he felt had the best grip and tight turns and all that kind of stuff, so you can peel back his data as well, see what his input is, and hopefully, you know, make the best decision you can on which props are going to be best for you. What did you think are the best props? What were your best experiences? I know the HQ 5043s are very popular. Between me and you, I think the T-motor, if you like the 5043s HQ, I would definitely be checking out the T-motor 5043s. And, you know, there's durability things in there as well, but noise-wise, they're doing pretty good. Props aren't that cheap, right? You're paying $3 to $4, I guess, for some of these props. You're only getting 4 of them, right? But you can see if you go cheap with the King Kong, you know, you're paying for that. Their quality's not as good. And you know, you're getting them inexpensive, but you have a lot more vibrations, so then you have to do a lot more software filtering, and there's negative ramifications to that. One of the biggest things that I look at now is that when somebody sends me a log and says, hey, UAV Tech, I'd really like your input on filter setups, one of the first things I ask them is, what props are you running? To me, props and frame, you know, the Chameleon and the Rooster are not great frames for resonance. They have a ton of frame resonance in them, and they're premium frames that a lot of people use. Honestly, I find the good old Martian 2 Banggood frame has great characteristics. So that's a whole nother aspect. Which frames have the best noise resonance, or the least amount of noise resonance? So the first thing is props. You make sure you're using, you know, to me, looks like name brand props. It's not just a hype. It does make a difference. And then the next thing, you know, you might be surprised that even name brand frames don't actually have the best frame resonance. What you're really looking for in a frame or a noise is, and I can show here, you really want this clean motor band. That's what you want to see. I mean, you're gonna have a motor band. It's what you don't want from a frame or props is this secondary band, or just a straight line where you have this constant peak at a constant hertz value. So I've seen some logs, and you can kind of see it starting to peel through here, is that you'll have this at 200 hertz or 250 hertz, you'll have this spike of noise that is always there. and then you also have this motor band. Well, what's the downside with Betaflight with that, or any filtering? It kind of stinks. Is that the dynamic notch can only sit on top of one thing at a time. Now, if this is constant, you can just put a static notch right on top of it. That kills it out, and then the dynamic notch can follow this. So you have some options there. Notch filters are going to kill peak noise. That's inherently in their design. I mean, the fundamental of what a notch filter is used in the audio industry and in our quads is to kill peak motor noise or kill peak noise. So that's what their specialty is. So you can use those for that advantage. But obviously the better thing is to not have that mechanical noise to begin with through good selection of props and a good frame, and also motors as well. Have some more test data coming to show that soft mounting your flight controller, it doesn't make it, it's not really worth it compared to props. So if you have junky props and you're like, oh, well, I'll soft mount my flight controller to make up for it, it will not make up for it. You get a little bit of advantage on the yaw axis will show, but the other two axes, not really. It's if you really want to make a big, a dollar for dollar focus, you need to really focus on the best props first. Okay, drop any questions, comments below. Thanks everybody, and I hope this helped.